Hi everyone, this is Shelby,
And I'm Leia.
and we were assigned the model of human occupation, or better known as MOHO. I hope that by the end of this presentation that you will be an expert on the history of MOHO and how this top-down approach is utilized in our future profession as an OT.
MOHO is one of the most widely used occupation-based model used by OT practitioners. It was developed by Gary Kielhofner, Burke, and Hurd in the 1980s. MOHO addresses the motivation for occupation, the routine patterning of occupations, the nature of skilled performance, and the influence of environment on occupation.
This theory was a switch from traditional OT views of reducing physical and mental impairment to a model focused on occupation-based interventions that valued the importance of an individual's environment and motivation for engagement. This theory is appropriate to use on clients with a range of physical, mental, cognitive, and sensory impairments.
Although Kielhofner was the main pioneer for MOHO, the earliest form of MOHO was developed by Mary Riley, the occupational behavior model. Riley's model emphasized the complex relationships among occupation, work, and play. Later, Kielhofner used Riley's work and transformed it into concepts useful for OT practice. The MOHO that we know today is actually a collaboration of many authors.
Evidence shows that the model of human occupation is the most widely used occupation-based model in practice worldwide. A study involving OTs in the US found that 75% of therapists surveyed said that they use MOHO in their practice. They reported that using MOHO allowed them to have an occupation-based practice and a clearer professional identity.
MOHO explains how occupations are chosen, patterned, and performed. It is concerned with how people participate in daily occupations and as a result achieve a sense of competence and identity. This model believes that a person's characteristics and their environment are linked together when someone is engaging in an occupation.
The first part of MOHO that we are going to focus on is related to a person across the lifespan. MOHO as it relates to the person consists of three components: volition, habituation, and performance capacity/skills. An explanation of all of those are in the upcoming slides.
Volition is a person's motivation for completing occupations. This concept exemplifies the need or desire for humans to participate in occupations and is often shaped by their previous personal experiences and allows for personal choice. Personal causation, which is the thoughts and feelings about how the self completes a task, as well as personal values and interests impact a person's volition.
Habituation is the learned way of doing things that leads to patterns and routines. A person's pattern of behavior is governed by habits and roles. Habits and roles determine how a person uses time, performs routine activities, and provides a script for identity that provides a personal self of responsibilities and obligation that leads to a person's choice in occupational engagement.
The final component related to the person is their performance capacity or their mental or physical abilities used during occupational performance. A person's performance capacity can be impacted by bodily systems called on during activity. MOHO recognizes physical and mental capacities as well as a person's personal interpretation of their impairments in their world.
All three of these components that make up the person, volition, values, and interests, all lead to a person's willingness to participate and choose certain occupations. The more interest someone has in something, especially if it aligns with their values, the more likely they are going to be motivated to participate.
The next concept that is part of MOHO is the environment. Both a person's physical and social environment is important when thinking about the interaction between the person and an occupation. Environment plays a role in what people do and how they interpret their doing. Environments provide the resources and the options to choose and modify surroundings to align with person's interests and values.
The final concept as it relates to MOHO is occupation. There are three ways in which practitioners evaluate a person's engagement in occupations: through performance skills, occupational performance, and occupational participation. Combinations of experiences and environment leads to the development of occupational identity, competency, and adaptation.
So to tie all the elements together, throughout the life course, experiences, habits, interests, values, and performance skills, a person creates their occupational identity. Through identity, the person can become a master through occupational competency, or the person can adapt and make changes as the environment changes. This is known as occupational adaptation.
A basic theme of MOHO is that change in therapy is driven by the client's occupational engagement. What a client does, thinks, and feels shapes change. Practitioners must then take into consideration how these elements interact throughout the therapy process and within the client's lives to optimize therapy outcomes.
MOHO is a practice that uses a thinking process referred to as therapeutic reasoning. Practitioners use these concepts and the MOHO theory throughout the OT process. These 6 steps for therapeutic reasoning is how practitioners use MOHO concepts to practice from beginning to end.
There are about 20 different assessments that are used when a practitioner is utilizing the MOHO lens. Depending on the assessment and activity, the person, environment, and occupation could be measured by the OT. For more information on specific assessments used, Table 42.3 in the Willard and Spackman book is a great resource and gives a brief description of each assessment.
Think about yourself as an OT student. Your physical and social environments can be a support and/or a barrier for you. Your volition or your desire to become an OT, your habits and routines of studying, and your ability to manage everything else in your life will guide you to eventually achieve your goal of becoming an occupational therapist. Your motivations and environment have an impact on your occupational performance.
Environment and context in which a person completes occupational tasks is important for understanding an individual through a MOHO lens. Interventions in practice would focus on performance capacity, roles, motivation, and ultimately occupational performance and participation.
Thanks for listening. We hope you at least learned something about MOHO. If you have any questions, please refer to Gina. Have a great day, or evening, or have a good night.